I'd like to introduce Phil. Phil was with the Department of Interior Bureau of Reclamation, worked on water issues, and became a whistleblower also regarding improper allocations to big agriculture. Subsequently, he has written in numerous periodicals nationally and locally regarding water issues. He's one of the foremost defenders and champions of Colorado water and its use for the public and for beneficial use. He's also on the board of the directors of Be the Change, and wanted me to mention the fact that Be the Change is sponsoring Democracy School, it's called. It's being hosted by and led by the, I always forget the exact name, CDELF, which is, someone help me? Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund. There we go. And it's an extraordinary course. It's truly, I would say, life-changing in terms of your appreciation for what our Constitution does and does not provide, and steps that we have to take as citizens right now at this time on our planet to ensure that we protect a livable future for us all. So I would encourage you to look into that. It's on the website for Be the Change. It's occurring February 25th. There's some others in other areas as well. But if you'd like to sign on, this is a really great opportunity. Please welcome Phil Doe.
I always like to start by quoting Warren Isley, the anthropologist. He said, if there's any mystery in the world, the mystery is in water. The oil and gas industry doesn't believe that, of course. They're fast at the business of robbing us of all our water. While you were all taking a nap or eating your dinner, they started leasing land in this state at a remarkable rate. They've leased 5 million acres of federal land, 1 million acres of state land, and nobody knows how much private land because nobody's keeping track. Our government is simply asleep at the throttle when it comes to protecting our rights, and particularly our water. But it's probable that the private land exceeds the public land by twice. So not only do you have 6 million acres of public and state land, you probably have 12 million acres of private land. That is one lot of land, and it's a tremendous amount of water demand. Each well, as Wes said, each horizontal well, this new technique, probably takes 5 million gallons. Now think about that, 5 million gallons. That's enough water for the domestic needs of 150 people. For a year. Now, multiply this by 18 million acres. And you can put probably, for each section, you can probably put 16 of these horizontal wells. Wes and I were just looking at the Niobrara, which covers the eastern part of the state. And it's about 8,000 square miles. If you were to put 8 wells in each section within that 8,000 square miles, you would come up with 64,000 wells. Now they're not going to sink all these wells in 1 year. They can't because they don't have the equipment to do it. But over 20 years, they very well could. And so you're getting up something close to what each year, what Denver uses in domestic water. Do you have any idea how much water Denver uses a year? About 246,000 acre feet. So the oil and gas industry, at very modest estimation, could be using that just on the Niobrara, or pretty close to it. And that's only one part of the state. You've got the whole western part of the state that's also subject to exploitation by the oil and gas industry. Now try and match that against the water available to do this. Every river on the Front Range is over-appropriated. The Platte, the Arkansas, the Rio Grande, they are all over-appropriated. We've used more water than we have. So how are we going to find water for the oil and gas industry? It seems to me to be a physical impossibility, but there's no analysis being done of this. Absolutely none. Because first of all, the Oil and Gas Commission, which has all the authority over this process, only looks at one well at a time. They can never get to the point they should be at, and that's understanding the impact of water and land use given the appetite of the oil and gas industry. They're not doing that. And we must stop them and say, you've got to do this. It's in our interest. Let me give you a couple of examples. Our water supply comes from the Platte River, from South Park. That's the headwaters of the Platte River. Now, it's probably going to come as a surprise to you that 80,000 acres in Park County have already been leased to the oil and gas industry. That is a direct threat on our water supply. But beyond that, where are they going to find the water to drill all these wells in a system that's already over-appropriated? Nobody bothers to analyze that. No one. I mean, where's our government? Neither our federal government, our state government, they are not analyzing this at all. So we're simply flying blind into the future. And we're going to be caught up short. The water's just not there. It simply isn't there. Look at the situation in Commerce City. Weston and I have been going out to Commerce City every week for about a month and a half. And just one oil and gas company out there, Hillcorp, has leased 4.5 sections of land. If you put 8 wells on each section, you come up with about 34 oil and gas wells. Their water requirement for just those few wells would be equal to all the fluids and poisons that they drilled into the arsenal back in the 60s or whenever it was. So it would be equal to that. And we asked the arsenal, they spent $2 billion, folks, cleaning up the arsenal from this stuff. And they're spending $10 million a year to try and keep the water clean so it doesn't pollute the Platte River. They would, for just this one little piece in Commerce City, the water they would use would be equal to all the water that was dumped into that disposal well at the arsenal. And it would be dumped in at many times the pressure. For the arsenal, when they were dumping it in, was only 1,100 psi. Shane has told me the PSI goes up to 40,000. From what I've seen and from what Wes has told me, it's probably closer to 10,000. But it's 10 times, at least 10 times what they used. Now, is this going to have an impact on those fractures out there? Will it cause any seismic activity? Well, no one knows. And I have friends that think it probably won't. But here again, we're flying blind. Will it or won't it? And wouldn't you think rational people, a rational government interested in the well-being of its people, would look at this before it started making all these leases and committing all this water to these activities? Well, they haven't done it. It's just not there. This whole process is totally irrational. I mean, a rational person would sit down and say, how much water do we have available? 0. Well, then how can we afford to do all this fracking? Well, you do with some other medium. Apparently, I mean, if you don't have water, what are you going to use? You have to find something else. But they're not doing that. And there are other means available. They're experimental, but at least it could be done with something by water. The other problem is that the state refuses to look at the impacts on cities. As it stands right now, the oil and gas industry, literally, makes all decisions about where a well is going to go. It has to coordinate with the state. But they make the final decisions, and their rights are superior to yours. By law, the mineral rights are superior to your surface rights. So all these towns along the Front Range really do and should have the expectation that they're going to be drilled. And it is a very big issue in Commerce City and in Aurora, because they're coming in there, they're saying, we're going to drill. And they say, well, we'll cooperate, but we're still going to drill. We ought to have the right to say, no, you're not coming into our cities. You can go out there, you can go over there, but we'll decide where you go. And every piece of land in this state shouldn't be open to exploitation. But as it is right now, it pretty much is. Except for national wildlife areas and things like that. But even up in South Park, they leased a lot of land, about 19,000 acres inside a wildlife refuge for oil and gas exploitation. And nobody said a word. We stopped them from putting some wells in right next to Antero Reservoir, but you can't believe how difficult it is to get their attention. Because money, you know. Upton Sinclair, I don't know what he'd do today. I'll just close by saying that Maud Barlow was here a couple weeks ago, and she was talking about how we have to defend our water. Since only less than 1% of the water in the world is available for consumption, for our use. 1%. And we treat it like it was garbage. And the oil and gas industry would treat it even worse because it destroys it. All the water they use is destroyed. You can't use it again. It's unlike any other use. It's gone. They pollute it so dearly that it can't be used for any other purpose. They have to put it back in the ground, like that well out at the arsenal. So think about these things. And so what Maud Barlow always ends her presentation with a quote from W.H. Auden. He said, "Thousands of people have lived without love, but nobody has lived without water." So, thanks.
I'd like to introduce Phil. Phil was with the Department of Interior Bureau of Reclamation, worked on water issues, and became a whistleblower also regarding improper allocations to the Environmental Legal Defense Fund. There we go. And it's an extraordinary course. It's truly, I would say, life-changing in terms of your appreciation for what are and for beneficial use. He's also on the board of the directors of Be the Change, and wanted me to mention the fact that Be the Change is sponsoring Democracy School, it's called. It's being hosted by and led by the, I always forget the exact name, CDELF, which is, someone help me? Community Big Agriculture. Subsequently, he has written in numerous periodicals nationally and locally regarding water issues. He's one of the foremost defenders and champions of Colorado water and its use for the public.